Hey guys, welcome to episode 3 of Young Wife Lifestyle in Christ. I am Danielle Gasson. I'm 26, been married for 3 years, and today I'm in my wonderful office. Now, this vlog is for women who are single, in relationships, married, booed up, whatever you want to call it. I'm not an expert, but I just want to share my experiences, the areas that I've matured in hopes that it will provide insight for others. So let's get right into it. Today's blog topic is handling conflict resolution, and compromise. So before I really get into the spiel, what I want to do, and I'm probably going to do this in just about every episode, is anytime that there's conflict within your relationship, one thing that me and my husband had to put into practice, because if we didn't, we would be warring with each other all the time, is understanding that getting to the resolution of any problem should not serve me, it should not serve him, it should not serve his desire to be right or my desire to be right, but it should serve the greater good of the relationship as a whole. So when we come to a place of compromise, it is only because we both desire for our relationship to be at a place of purity. So it's not about me, it's not about him, but it's about us. Now, one thing that we have found is that can be the greatest enemy to any resolution or getting through conflict is an emotional reaction. When we go through something or when we experience, disagreement or arguments, and they are inevitable, like everyone is going to have some type of disagreement, period. But the greatest enemy, like I said, is just allowing your emotions to get the best of you. Now don't get me wrong, sometimes depending on the situation, it's very hard to respond in wisdom, but that's where the Holy Spirit comes in. However, if you react based on your emotions and not from a place of wisdom and integrity, it can make the conflict even worse. So sometimes we have to take a step back and say, okay, I'm hurt, but I know if I say something right now, Lord, I might hurt their feelings. So let me respond like Jesus would respond. Because if I respond like I want to respond, then it's going to be some problems. So we have to always be mindful that it's bigger than me. It's bigger than how I feel. It's about me and you submitting to each other for the greater good of the relationship. So I want you to evaluate within yourself, when you're boo, don't do something that you like, how do you respond? Do you shut down? Do you take jabs? Do you yell? Do you get angry? Do you call them names? Because ultimately, the way that you respond really defines not only your communication, but your level of maturity. Now, both of you have to, like I said before, have to be in a posture of serving the greater good of their relationship, regardless. However, depending on who's hurt or who's doing the hurting, it can be hard, but that's when the Holy Spirit and maturity have to set in. In Proverbs 15:1, it says, a soft answer turns away wrath. Now, ideally, you can think about that like if somebody popping off at you and you respond softly, then that energy won't be volleyed back and forth. But also, I believe that even when you're dealing with anger and emotions within yourself, when you can respond, softly in the spirit, not only will it calm you, but it'll help you go into that conversation with grace. Now, I'm going to give you an example of where I haven't always been good with conflict. Like, for instance, my husband is like a person who, when we have a disagreement, mind you, got a disagreement, but he likes to take a step back and then want to think about it and then come back. And me, I'm the type of person, like, I want to talk about it right now. Let's talk about it right now. And so that makes me mad. So I'm like, you don't want to talk. Well, it used to make me mad. You don't want to talk about this right now. You don't care. And that was my posture before. So I was responding because of my emotions. Maybe the conflict made me feel like he didn't care. So now he don't want to talk about it right now in this instance because it's urgent to me, and I'm thinking he doesn't care. But what God revealed to me was, okay, maybe his response is based on who he is and not based on who you are. And you can't expect for people to always respond to conflict the way that you do, or respond to get into a resolution the way that you do. Because you have to first realize that we all have different upbringing, and then we've all gone through different things. And based on our level of maturity, communication, and reasoning, we are going to handle situations differently. So for me, what I had to do was realize, okay, you can't get mad because he don't want to talk about it right now. That just might not be, his way. Maybe he knows if he talks about it right now from a state of heightened emotions, he may do something that's dumb. So respect that. Now, when it comes to another conflict that we had, for instance, I was my husband's first serious relationship. He has always been a minstrel, so he's played drums since he was like 8 in church. And so because he takes that very seriously and that is his career, he sees every time he's at church as an assignment. Now fast forward to where he's married to me. So when you're on these assignments, now you're bringing somebody else, like a plus one. And so for me, because I'm super affectionate, I love hugs and stuff like that, we would go to an assignment or something, and I would just be sitting there as his girlfriend. I just sit there, and when you ready to go, I go. But then as his wife, I'd be like, well, you can sit with me while the preacher is preaching or something like that. And his mindset wasn't even there. He's thinking, I need to be on my job. And so I'm like, yeah, but we're legal. Like Pastor Fanika say, you're legal, babe. Okay, so you can sit with me. It's not gonna look like you're fornicating. I'm your wife. I'm your wife. Okay, so you can do that. And so for me, at first, before I even made that clear to him, I would feel like he didn't want to be seen with me. It sounds like, what, you ashamed? But me seeing that from my lens and not really understanding where he was coming from, it helps save me from putting myself through a lot, because I didn't jump to conclusions. Now, for instance, some conflicts I know that people have in relationships, just by talking to my friends and stuff like that, maybe you feel like your dude doesn't communicate well, or he doesn't text good enough. Y'all don't live together, and y'all might have a short distance relationship, and you feel like his texting is terrible, or if he be liking naked girls pictures on Instagram, how do you present that to them? Now again, if y'all not on the same page and don't have a common goal to serve the betterment of the relationship, that's one thing. But if you do, how do you make that clear to him without popping out? So one thing that we have to do, we lay out a disclaimer every time we have a disagreement. So, and I mean, it might sound like a lot, but when you have a union, there are some things that just have to be protocol. So I'll come into it look, I don't really want to talk to you, but because I love you and because I'm with you and we doing this, I'm gonna talk to you because we need to figure this out. Now, this thing that you did, I don't like it. Here's why I don't like it. Here's how it makes me feel. And I want to get your standpoint on it. However, you have to then evaluate, is what you're doing respectful? Does it serve our relationship? And if I did it to you, how would you feel? Now, I done got my feelings hurt sometimes when I've asked my husband, now if I did it, how would you feel? Because he's a very nonchalant person. And so, of course, men and women are so different. Even in the Bible, it commands us as women, it says submit to the man, but it commands the man to love the woman. But I want you all to see that is submission from two different roles. Just because the Bible doesn't say submit. See, for a man, love is a level of submitting. Because a man, when it says to us to submit, that just means to me, this is my interpretation, that the man craves respect. So as a woman, you being, joined with him, his desire from you is submit, but he has to do his role, right? So your desire from him is compassion and love. So he is commanded to love you. And so because we are built so differently, submission is going to look different for both of us, but it ensures that we're both getting what we want. I heard our apostle, Dr. Matthew Stevenson, he said that if you're always trying to tell someone their role, it's a chance that you're not fulfilling your role. But the thing is, a man has to also understand his role. So that goes back to that common goal, establishing roles and understanding, okay, when you get into the relationship, how do you respond, when we have disagreements? Do you shut down? And how would you like for me to respond? How do you handle conflict? And people might say that's doing too much, but I feel like when you get to a level of maturity or a certain age and you know what you want, sometimes you have to lay out those expectations early on so that they are met, or when they aren't met, you'll know where that person is coming from. And so even with conflict resolution and compromise, like I said, conflict is inevitable, but how you respond, if you get angry quick and your first thing is to yell, you might be a part of the problem. Because I learned early on, if I start yelling or something, when I'm not led by the Spirit, my husband will be like, and turn that ear off. And so I had to realize, if he ain't turning his ear off because he don't have respect for me, I'm not respecting myself. Think about it. If you go to a classy restaurant, and whatever race you are, if you see two women of your race fighting and wine just flying everywhere, you're gonna feel like, oh, that's a disgrace. Oh, I'm embarrassed, right? So think about that in the same nature. When we're yelling and we're not effectively communicating with intelligence and with wisdom in the spirit, that's how we look. Because it don't matter how loud you say something, it does not change the magnitude of what you're saying. But you have to learn how to communicate from a place of poise and from a place of gentleness and a place of grace. And then, of course, not shutting down. A lot of us revert to just shutting our mouth. But we have to realize that one of the greatest services to resolving conflict is communication. Now, that communication has to be proper, it has to be mature, and it has to be effective. But you have to tailor that communication to the person that you're dealing with, but also challenging that person to mature in their leveling of communication. But all of this goes back to, are y'all on the same page? So for me, conflict resolution and compromise, they go hand in hand. Being able to submit your agenda, submit your ability to be right, and submitting your ability to function in your emotions to wisdom, intellect, and grace. Because neither of us are perfect. And if I always try to prove you wrong or prove I'm right, it's going to create resentment in between us. But if I can get you to see what I'm saying by providing a perspective that you can understand based on who you are, for one, that's going to take me having to study you and understand who you are and how your experiences have affected your level of communication and conflict resolution. But also, that's going to take me not being selfish and self-serving, because some things you can't avoid. But I think when we do come in contact with the unavoidable, as long as we pursue it from a place of poise and from the spirit and a place of prayer posture, you can navigate through anything. So I want to challenge you to evaluate how you respond to conflict and what does it say about you and how can you strengthen that. Have you created an environment where it's uncomfortable to talk, or where your partner might feel like all you're going to do is yell, or all you're going to do is talk about how you feel but never listen to how they feel? So both parties have to submit your ability to be right, but also you not only have to submit your ability to be right, but you have to submit your ability to operate in the reaction to the experience, and not be led by that reaction, but be led by that common goal, and that's getting to the root of the problem, fixing the problem, and working it out to the betterment of the relationship. Bye, guys.